Junk dump here, and it is time for this 1972 Oldsmobile 350 to get torn apart. So we're going to completely disassemble this engine today, starting on the top end. And here we go. And that's a stock 1972 cast iron intake manifold. Just a little background, this engine, I used to run this in my own car, replaced a 307 with this and ran it forever. I put a lot of miles on it, 300,000 miles on this engine. And I used to race it, run it, drive to school with it, commute, road trips, you name it, everything. So this really has seen it all. I know the engine was beat on before I got it, and I know that it was run low on oil to the point where the top is making some really horrible noises. So I expect to see a little bit of evidence of that as we get down into it. But let's see how this goes. Those oil-filled tubes can be a real problem, especially in the Northeast here. They get rusted and they get stuck pretty good. It's hard to take them out without damaging them. Usually, this dead blow hammer is usually pretty helpful as long as you strike it well. No problems here with removing the heads. I usually loosen the heads first and then I take off the valve train just to remove that pressure from the push rods pushing. It keeps those rocker pivots in one piece and really limits your chances of breaking. I'm going to remove those original 1972 cylinder heads, and then I'm going to take off the rockers and the pivots or bridges. I'll hang on to the gaskets. I'm going to remove the oil filter housing. Later on I'm going to do a video showing you how I sometimes plug the bypass in these. Now I'm going to remove the oil pan. Next, let's pull out these coolant jacket plugs. And these are the plugs you're going to want to pull if you're doing an intake or a cylinder head that drains those jackets coming out of the cylinder head, so that when you pop them off, you don't dump a whole lot of coolant down into your oil pan. Next, we'll remove that oil pump. Take note, there is no oil pump gasket for these Oldsmobiles. Not sure that you'd really need one here anyway. Next, I'll start removing this timing set. This crank key can be stuck and be tricky to get out at times. Depends how many miles run and how many times people have messed around with it. I'm going to take out the cam and take a really good look at it to see if that low oil condition caused any really severe damage on the cam. That'll give you an idea of what the internals are going to what kind of shape the engine is in. I'm going to mark the caps so that I know where they go and I know their orientation. Now I'm going to deburr that top part of these engine boards just to make sure that there's nothing that the piston rings are going to get caught on, because I'm going to pull the pistons out the top. Next, I'm going to remove the connecting rod and piston assemblies. I'm not seeing the kind of damage I was expecting to see, so my guess is that when the engine was run low on oil, it really wasn't low enough to do a ton of damage. which is a good thing. It means this clock's in this engine is in better shape than I thought it would be. Up in the northeast part of the country, rust is a big issue, and especially when these cars are run, as daily drivers, you get a lot of rust buildup in the back here. So those rear flex plates can be a real problem, as well as the casting plugs in the back. Anything on this side of the engine or exposed can potentially take some work to get it apart without breaking it. I'm using a dead blow hammer, and I'm not striking it anywhere near the outside because you don't want to bend this all up. The main caps are marked from the factory and numbered. I'm just gonna put a mark on them to mark the orientation. Now I'm gonna remove those caps and take a look at the bearings. What I'm finding is that the bearings actually look pretty good. It looks like this engine is actually in pretty good shape. The bottom end's not bad either. I'm gonna pull out that crankshaft and set it aside. Now here's a common thing that you're gonna run into when pulling apart engines with a lot of miles on them, or especially I find this on engines that were run with oil additives. Any kind of additives I think are a bad idea in your engine. They always end up leaving some kind of residue behind. Even poor quality engine oils like Quaker State with high ash content will leave behind sludge and build up. So one of the common things that can happen is that these lifters get stuck in the bores because of that bottom crud buildup on the bottom of them. So it's very hard to take them out of the top. You can see I left them in. That's so that when I flip it over like this and get everything out of the way, it's very easy to push those through the bottom and take them out that way. Next, I'm going to use my camshaft bearing tool, and we're going to pound out those old bearings. When you get to the last one, I'm going to punch out that core plug, and then you can only partially punch it out the back, so I'm going to have to modify one of the other bearings so that I can push it the entire way through. And that's only when you're doing this on a stand. Next, I'll start with all the plugs. I'm going to remove the oil gallery plugs in the front. Now remember that passenger side plug has that oiling hole. Your engine needs that, so make sure you put that back in the right place. And that does it for the first part of this 72 Olds 350 disassembly, and I'll see you next time for part 2.